questions about the rest of your points on your unit circle? So you have the x and y are negative. In quadrant 3, you have x is positive, y is negative in quadrant 4. And then you can use reflections, right? This is a reflection. So the 1/2 and root 3 over 2 are in the same order. Are there any other patterns you guys noticed besides the reflections? Like you could do a reflection over y, a reflection over x. Yeah, so if it ends in the pi over 6, you should always have this order, right? The root 3 over 2, the 1/2, and this one's negative root 3 over 2, 1/2. So if it's pi over 6, it's always that order. Okay, you could also go straight across the circle, and they should be in the same order. If it ends in pi over 4, you should have root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2. Those patterns are going to be important as we move on to the next part of 10.3 today. Okay? All right, so we're going to recap a few things and then do a few new things. The first thing is that every point on the unit circle is written in the form the cosine of theta and then the sine of theta. Okay, that means that cosine is equivalent to x and sine is equivalent to y. We are going to put something here in a minute, but first we're going to talk about the tangent. Do you guys remember from yesterday how we said you could find the tangent? Yeah, sine over cosine. Great. So you can take the sine and divide it by the cosine. Okay, which is your y over x. So what we're going to do is we are going to use the first quadrant, and we're going to find all of the tangents in quadrant 1. Okay? So quadrant 1 is the only quadrant that you'll have to have memorized. And then I'll teach you some tips and tricks for that today. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to calculate all of the tangents in quadrant 1. And we're going to just draw a little picture that represents the tangents. So can you guys draw a quadrant 1 for me here? Okay, and then it's okay if these are not exact, but we're going to do our points here. Okay? So you have the 30 degrees, we're going to find 0 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, and 90 degrees. All right, so let's start with the 30, and then we'll come back and do the 0 and 90. So for the 30 degree, okay, let's look at the point. Okay, so I'm going to go up to my unit circle. At 30 degrees, my point is root 3 over 2, 1/2. So if tangent is y divided by x, I'm just going to divide those two. Okay, I'm just going to do y divided by x. So this is my x, this is my y. If I'm dividing fractions, set it up like this. 1/2 divided by root 3 over 2. Because what's the rule when you're dividing fractions? Yeah, multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so this would be 1/2 times 2 over root 3. What's going to cancel out there? Yep. And then I don't want to leave it as 1 over root 3, so what do I do? Yep, multiply by root 3 over root 3. Because you can multiply anything by 1. So I have root 3 on top. What does the denominator become? 3. Okay, so this is your tangent at 30 degrees. So let's put it on our chart. So the tangent would be root 3 over 3. Okay, now can you guys do the 45 degree and the 60 degree? Okay, we just do that with your row and then check to make sure you guys both got it. What did you get for 45? 140. Yeah, because you're just dividing something by itself, right? Okay, so if you have the point root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2, whenever you're dividing something by itself, it's going to be 1. So if you realize that, you could just put equals 1. If you had to do the skip, flip, and multiply, that's fine. But everything just cancels out, right? So you do get 1. Okay, so then let's put that on our unit circle. Okay, and then our 60 degree is 1/2 root 3 over 2. So remember, you always do y divided by x. Do you need another minute to finish that one? You got it? Okay, so root 3 over 2. Can I just multiply by the reciprocal right away? 2 over 1. So what did you guys get? Root 3. So root 3 over 1 is just root 3. And there you go. Now, that is something that you can memorize. You can see it's root 3 over 3. You have the 1. That usually comes very naturally. And then you have the root 3. If you're ever confused about what goes where, they go in order of their length. So what is bigger, root 3 or root 3 divided by 3? Root 3, because if you divided it, it would be smaller, right? Okay, you could also find the decimals. This is like 0.5 something, okay, and then you have 1, and this is 1 point something. Because the square root of 3, it's in between square root of 1 and 4. Okay? All right, now let's do the 0 degrees. So at 0 degrees, what's the point? What comma what at 0? Let's look, yeah, 1 comma 0, right? So it's right here on your unit circle. And then when you set this up, you're just going to divide. So y divided by x is 0 divided by 1. What's that? 0. Okay, so yeah, it is 0. The tangent is 0. Okay, and then at 90 degrees, what's your point? 0, 1. All right, so when I set this up, it's 1 over 0. Well, if 0's on the bottom, do you guys remember what we call that? Undefined. And that is the value. So you are going to write undefined here. And undefined is a possible answer. Okay, so with tangent, you could have undefined. Okay, like I said, you can memorize these. If you do enough practice, you will. But you can always find it by dividing. Okay, so you don't have to memorize it. You can always divide y by x. You will have to have the first part of the unit circle memorize the first quadrant, and we'll go over that today, okay? All right, now another thing that we have to know is we want to know where trig functions are positive and where they're negative. So there's a special way for us to remember where are trig functions positive. Okay, and that is by just remembering this little acronym. All students take classes. All students take classes. Or some books will say, all students take calculus. Whichever you want. All students take classes. So what that means is the A stands for all functions are positive. So if we look in quadrant 1, okay, the x and the y's are both positive, and then we know that all the tangents are positive because we just found those, right? In quadrant 1. Okay, so all the x values are positive, all the y values are positive, and all the tangents are positive, which is y divided by x. Okay, what does the S stand for? No, what function? I know, the students, what does it stand for with our trig? Yes, the sine. So the sine function is what's positive in quadrant 2. Okay, remember the sine function is the same as which coordinate? The y. So look back up at your values. See how all the y's are positive? We didn't find the tangents here, but how do we know all the tangents are negative here? And that's going to be your x values, right? How do I know the tangent's going to be negative? Because when you are finding the tangent, what are you doing? Dividing. So aren't we dividing a positive by a negative? And isn't that going to be negative? Yeah. What about in quadrant 3? In quadrant 3, all the points are negative. So when you divide for tangent, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Hello?
Hi, could you please send Brianna Rose Green to the office with her things?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so then the T stands for tangent. Have a great day, Brianna Rose Green. I know. There's all right, and then the C stands for cosine. So the cosine is positive, which is the x value. Okay, so that is going to be important with what we're doing today. And I'm going to pass this out to you. And then the video will be online. Okay. All right, so today we're actually going to be using the unit circle to find the values. I really cannot stress this enough. Today, tomorrow, the next day, it's going to be really important that you do your homework because this stuff is so new. I know that in 10.1 and 10.2, a lot of that you learned in geometry, so that part went very, very well. In fact, your quiz grades were amazing, and I think I had the most 100% out of any quiz that I've already found. Okay, and again, that's because that sine, that cosine, and tangent, you guys had already done that before in geometry. But the stuff that we're doing now is going to be new. And so there's so many different types of cases that it's going to be important that you practice each type, okay? All right, so let's do 10.3 day 2.